Hello, welcome to part 2 of the post-18 options presentation, where we're going to be looking at employment, further education and gap years. So having a little think about employment, obviously at 18 you do have the option to completely leave education if that's what you want to do, and for some people that's the right choice. They want a break, they want a time to perhaps focus on developing skills rather than gaining more qualifications. There are a couple of things to think about though. Do your research into the company before applying, because actually one thing that you do want to make sure is that there are still areas for advancement, for you to develop, that there might well be the opportunity to do qualifications in the future. You don't want to limit yourself at this stage. So have a look to see whether they have management schemes that you might be eligible for in future, whether they have talent schemes where they go around looking out for people that are doing a particularly good job and maybe kind of look at them for promotion or advancement, or whether there's any specialist skills area that you might develop that might be good transferable skills for other careers in the future. What kind of employer do you want to work for? Do you like the idea of working for something small, local, where everybody knows each other, it's quite kind of friendly, and for that reason probably what you do really gets noticed? Or would you like to work for something somewhere national or international, so that those opportunities in the future might mean that actually if you want to move, you can move to another part of the country or perhaps even another part of the world? Obviously have a think about sector. Some really useful skills quiz on Unifrog that kind of matches you up to sectors and gets you thinking about actually kind of what sector your skills fit with. So obviously, are you a people person? Do you want to be working in a customer facing role? Do you want to be working outside? Do you want to be working in an office? And that will start to lead to different sectors. And obviously each sector also has their own specific recruitment pages that you can then start having a look on as well, and that will hopefully lead you on to more specific job adverts. Could you be an entrepreneur? Do you have a business idea? There is no doubt this is a very, very challenging route to go down, but there is actually a lot of support out there for young entrepreneurs at the moment. So don't rule it out. If you do think you have that amazing business idea, if you could be the next kind of Dragon's Den entrepreneur, then there is an opportunity to give it a go, and it is worth doing a little bit more research into that. Don't forget, if you are getting a job, then you do need to regularly update your CV and keep track of your competencies. So I'm sorry, all that competency recording isn't going to stop for you just because you've left school. This is really important because actually looking at the job market now, people will change their careers, they will change their jobs quite frequently, and it's important that if you are looking to get into a job, you think ahead to actually not just this job now, but the next job I'll be looking for, and make sure that you are going to be preparing for that as well by continuing to update your CV and making sure you're really showing yourself in the best possible light. I'm just going to quickly touch on armed forces because I know we do have students that are interested in this route. A couple of things to think about if you're looking at the armed forces. First of all, do you want to go into officer training, which is going to be looking at your A-levels, probably looking at a certain number of UCAS points or certain grades. Basic training, which actually won't look at particularly your qualifications, but obviously there does need to be certain physical kind of requirements that you meet. Or are you thinking about an apprenticeship? There are apprenticeships in all branches of the armed forces that are obviously looking at specific skill shortages. They will look at your GCSEs. You will have to do basic training as well, but it's a good area, a good way to go into a specific skills area of the armed forces. To be honest, the best thing you can do if you are looking at the armed forces is as soon as it reopens, make an appointment with the Armed Forces Careers Office. It is absolutely never too early to do that. For one reason is that not all areas are recruiting at all times. It's really important to be aware of what area is currently recruiting, because if you have your heart set in a particular area of the armed forces and they're not currently recruiting, you need that to build that into your plans and really come up with a backup plan for what you're going to do in the meantime until they start recruiting. Be aware of the application requirements and the timescale. Obviously, I mentioned before that there are a basic physical set of requirements for the armed forces, height, weight, all that sort of thing, as well as physical fitness. You'll need to complete a medical, and you need to know all of that because you don't want to suddenly find out halfway through that you're not eligible for the role that you're applying for. Be aware of the timescale as well. For certain roles within the armed forces, you need to be a certain age. You might not be able to start applying till after school. So it's important that you kind of know when things will happen and let us know as well so we can make sure that we're supporting you at the right time. Have a backup plan. A big thing about obviously the physical requirements is if you suddenly go out there and sprain an ankle and it takes a long time to heal, you're not going to be able to complete your basic training, and they are going to delay your application. So it's important that you have other ideas as well for if anything holds up that application or means it can't go through. Okay. Moving away or kind of combining vocational and moving back to kind of further study options. Obviously for a lot of people who might not necessarily feel ready for university for various reasons, there is the option again of going into further education. So basically looking at college and other training providers. So this could be another level 3 course, so it could be a BTEC course or another type of level 3 course at college, either in a more specialist area or perhaps if you've not quite hit upon the right thing at A level and you want to look at something different, moving across into an area that's different. For those of you that study art, you might be interested in the Art Foundation course. This is a great way of building up a wide variety of different skills within art and before you move on to study it further at degree or before you kind of go into that job market in art. Access to HE courses are designed to kind of bridge that gap between what you might currently be studying, or if you haven't got qualifications, that doesn't really apply to you, and you want to go to university in the future. So they're designed to look at kind of university level study skills, but also give you skills in specific areas, such as, for example, access to HE in health, which obviously leads on to things like health and social care and nursing and things like that. So this can be a really good option if actually you're not doing as well on your A levels as perhaps what you would like, and you are still keen on going to university for whatever reason. So foundation degrees at college, we mentioned foundation degrees before when we were talking about university. These are really kind of the first year at university level study. At a college, they're often taught part-time, which means you can combine that with work. So like those degree or higher apprenticeships that we were talking about before. And it can just be a good way of studying a little bit more flexibly. If you want to stay at home, for example, if you do want to carry on working part-time, and you want a kind of more practical way of studying for your degree. As I said before, they offer you an opportunity to change direction if your A-levels haven't quite turned out to be in the subjects that you thought you would love and you want to now explore something different, or actually if you want to go more in depth. So perhaps, for example, taking the example of health again, you now want to study a particular area of health, such as the social care side of things, in more depth, or perhaps engineering if you've done tech, if you've done physics, but now you want to focus on the practical engineering side of that in more depth. It can be additional preparation for university, as I mentioned with the Access to HE course. A lot of those courses will give you more UCAS points if that's something that you need, or it can be a direct route into employment. So if it isn't the case that you now want to look for employment, but all the jobs that you're looking for sort of site-specific skills that you don't have yet, it can be a way to gain more skills. Quickly just mentioning professional qualifications. You can get these as part of an apprenticeship or a degree apprenticeship as well. These are things like professional accounting qualifications or things like professional counselling qualifications. They tend to be industry specific. They might require you to be in employment, so it might well be that actually you can't access some of these now. But some you can just study at college if you want to kind of be doing a skill perhaps while you have another job. The only thing to be aware of is that they often are privately funded. So obviously, if you are employed, your employer might pay for them. But if you're not currently employed in a relevant area, you might be funding those yourself. But that's another thing that you can look at a lot of our local colleges. Finally, just having a quick look at gap years, particularly at the moment, because I think a lot of people are wanting a lot more time to think about their options. Gap years can be good. One of the things you need to consider is if you want to do a gap year and go to university afterwards, do you apply this year with the rest of your friends and then have that application based on your predicted grades, but you kind of go through it with all the rest of your friends and we're there to help support you on a daily basis with your application, or do you defer, and that's deferring your entry, so you defer your entry for 2022, or do you not apply this year and apply next year whilst you're on your gap year? That can mean that you've got a little bit more time to actually think about your options. It means that you'll actually have your grades when you apply, so you'll know which courses are going to be suitable for you. But it does mean that during your gap year, you have to be a little bit on it with your applications. You have to be contacting the school, maybe coming in to visit us, or if you're kind of travelling, making sure you've got access to internet and you can actually do that application. I mentioned travel. That is the traditional view of a gap year, you know, a big rucksack and setting off around the world. It can be a very expensive option, but it is something that people still often do like to do. Obviously, we don't quite know what the current situation will look like and whether travel will be completely possible in the way that people used to in the future. But if you are interested in that, there's a lot of really good websites and areas that can kind of help you start your research and think about what that might look like. Obviously, you'll probably want to think about whether you want to work whilst travelling or staying at home, or whether perhaps you want to volunteer. Volunteering can be a brilliant opportunity to build up skills in different areas, but to perhaps try out a career and see if you like a particular area without really committing to it. And also just to do something that's very worthwhile, to meet people, to have a bit of fun. And you can do that either in this country or whilst you're travelling. Or it might be that you want to save up a little bit of money or build on particular skills, and therefore you're going to get a job either to fund, as I said, travel and volunteering and other things, or just because you kind of fancy a break from education and working is what you really want to do. Another option is the year in industry. This is specific to students that are interested in going to university, particularly in areas of STEM. And this is where you get to spend a year out working in a STEM industry. So, for example, we've had people go and work in large-scale chemical companies before, for National Rail, various different kind of STEM-based companies. You apply through the Engineering Development Trust. Applications normally come out towards, throughout year 13, and that can be a really fantastic way of building up good skills for university and beyond. And I know a lot of people that have been very successful in employment who've gone into that route. So some of the pros of going on to do a gap year: it can give you additional skills and help develop you as a person. So often if you're going to do a university, kind of go on to university as well, it does mean you've got an extra set of employment skills to look back on. It's a nice break from education, and some people really need that. And it gives you more thinking time. So if you aren't quite sure what you want to do with your future, if you're not quite sure if university is right for you, then this gives you a little bit more time to think about it. And there can be fantastic opportunities that come from a gap year. As I mentioned before with year in industry, sometimes people do get offered a job off the back of their gap year, and they find the thing that they were really meant to be doing, and that can be a fantastic opportunity. Obviously, one of the cons is cost. You do have to think about the costs involved in a gap year, whether that's you're going to stay at home and volunteer, but you need to think about how you're suddenly going to pay rent if your parents are asking for it, or if you are obviously going around the world, how you're going to fund that. So you need to think carefully about that and probably sit down with family and have a chat to them about that as well. I mentioned before managing your applications whilst on a gap year, thinking about how you're going to keep in touch with the school and just kind of get all of that done at the right time and meet the deadlines. That's something to think about. Sometimes people do lose their motivation to return to education on a gap year. That isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you've got to consider, you know, if you really want to go to university or you really need to go to university for your chosen career, but if you take a year out, you might lose that kind of flow. You perhaps might just want to go straight on to university. Okay, so this leads me into your task this week. What I would like you to do is make use of the Post-18 options guide that I'm going to send you, and also Unifrog, to look at 2 different possible pathways and really explore what these might look like for you. We ask for 2 because it is really important that you have a backup plan at all points. I think if this year has shown us anything, it's that life can throw up all sorts of things that we didn't expect, so you do need to have a backup plan. Once you finish that plan, I'd like you to upload it to your locker, and if you haven't already, please update your Post-18 intentions on Unifrog so that we can kind of see where you're going. So I will just quickly show you the bits of Unifrog that you should be using to help with this research now. So here we are in Unifrog, and the bit that you need to be looking at this week is the Know How library. So if you go to this tool, you'll see that you can search by keyword, or you can just have a look at the different libraries. So you've got UK universities here, other useful stuff. There is genuinely all sorts of useful stuff in there, UK apprenticeships, and obviously lots of different ideas for kind of studying all around the world and the world of work as well. Once you find an area that you're particularly interested in, you can favourite it, and then obviously you can go back and have a look at those in your own time. But there's loads and loads of information in here, loads of videos, loads of different areas to get your site started, loads of links to other areas that might be useful. So do have a good look at this. So finally, that is all due in for next Friday, and over the coming weeks we will be going on to explore some of these details in a lot more detail as well. So good luck with your task, and if you need any help, please just pop me an email.